Pocket Pro Multi-Tube is a handheld tool that can measure multiple water quality parameters in the field. These parameters are pH, conductivity, total dissolved solids, salinity, and temperature. We'll discuss standard use in this video. You can always refer to the manual for more information. And we do have a separate video on how to calibrate the Pocket Pro. That video and the manual are both available on SharePoint with the technical handbook. If you need help accessing these or have any questions about the Pocket Pro, please contact the Charleston engineering team. We're always happy to help. The first thing to know is that the Pocket Pro should always be stored with a cap full of water. This is to prevent the sensor tip here from drying out. If the sensor tip dries out, it won't work and will need to be replaced. So always make sure that you fill it with a cap full of water. That means our first step is always going to be to discard and rinse both the sensor tip and the cap. So we'll discard the old water and then we'll use our sample. We're using this container here. If you're in the field, you can do it directly from your water source, otherwise from the container you brought back to your office. Rinse the tip and then fill and empty the cap a couple of times, just to make sure that all of the old water has been replaced with our sample water. Then we're ready to prepare our sample for reading. So you'll fill the cap to just below the fill line, and then push it firmly on to the Pocket Pro. It should fit snugly and stay in place. The next thing you may notice is that there are 3 buttons and 2 symbols on each button. That means there are 3 buttons, but 6 options. Each button controls 2 different options depending on whether we simply press the button for a second or whether we hold the button. So if we were to push and hold the button, it's going to do the function that's shown on the bottom symbol. If we push the button for just a second, it'll do what's shown in the top symbol. So for example, the power symbol is shown on the bottom of the lower button. So if we push and hold, it will turn the Pocket Pro on. If we were to simply press this button for a second, it's going to control the light. So that will turn the light on. To turn the light off, you just push for a second. And then again, to turn it off, we're going to push and hold. And push and hold again to turn it back on. For the middle set of buttons, if we were to push it just once, it would enter calibration mode, which is shown by the graph symbol. If we were to push and hold the middle button, it's going to open up the settings for the Pocket Pro. For the top button, if we were to push it once, it's going to lock the reading on the screen, which is indicated by the lock symbol here, as well as the lock symbol that shows on the screen. To unlock the Pocket Pro, again, you'll just push it once. To move to the next parameter, you would hold this button, indicated by the arrow, showing that it's going to move on to the next parameter. And we're going to demonstrate that in a minute. For the display, you can see that the parameter that's being read right now is shown at the top. So right now it says pH. The value is shown here in the middle of the screen, and then the units are shown off to the right. Make sure you always pay attention to these units, because some parameters may be displayed in multiple units. We also have the temperature on the bottom, and right now this is set to Fahrenheit, but again, this could also be in Celsius, so make sure that you pay attention to which unit is displayed on the screen. There are other indicators that may show up on the screen as well, such as the power symbol, so this is going to indicate the level of your batteries. Always check this before you go into the field, and it's never a bad idea to take extra batteries with you. If you need to replace the batteries, lift up on this tab to open the top tab, and then pull the cover off. Then to get to the batteries, you'll push this tab towards the open and flip open the battery compartment. Then simply replace the batteries, but make sure to pay attention to the orientation of the batteries. To close, you'll close it, and then push that tab towards the lock position. And then you can slide the cap back on. Again, there may be other indicators too. For example, this calibration symbol for pH. That simply means that it was done with a medium calibration standard. Any other indicators that may show up on your screen will be explained in the manual, but if you have any questions, again, just let us know. So we're going to hold this top button to move to the next parameter, which is conductivity, which again is indicated at the top of the screen. As you can see, it takes a second for the reading to stabilize. That means that it may drift for a minute. Always wait until it stops drifting or that it stabilizes before you actually write down the reading. If it continues to bounce back and forth between two numbers, write down the average of the readings. And again, pay attention to units. Conductivity may be shown in microsiemens per centimeter, which is indicated here, or it may be shown in millisiemens per centimeter, which would be indicated by an ms. The next parameter we will hold again until it switches. The next one is TDS, or total dissolved solids. Again, pay attention to the units. This can be displayed in parts per million, which is ppm, which is also equivalent to milligrams per liter, or it may be shown in parts per thousand, which would show as ppt. Again, we'll push and hold to move to the next parameter, and that's salinity. Again, just like TDS, salinity can be shown as parts per million or parts per thousand, so always write down the value and the units. One last time, we'll push and hold, and that brings us back to the beginning, which is pH. Keep in mind that the pH may need to be calibrated. Two indications that pH may need to be calibrated is if the pH reading seems wrong. So pH should be in a range of 6 to 8. So if you're outside of that and it doesn't make sense for a water sample, it may need to be recalibrated. Another indication is if the calibration symbol, which is this little graph, pops up in the lower left corner with a question mark next to it. That means it's also time for calibration. So in order to calibrate the Pocket Pro, you're going to need your calibration standards, and then you can either follow the instructions in the manual or watch our separate video on how to do that. Finally, when you're done recording the results and the units for all parameters, turn off the Pocket Pro by holding the power button. Don't forget to store the Pocket Pro with water in the cap to prevent the sensor from drying out. When you're in the field, just leave the sample water in the cap. When you return to the office, discard the old sample water and rinse the sensor cap with the deionized water if that's available, or use clean tap water. Then fill the cap and replace it firmly